Welcome to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. I'm Danielle Van, a cognitive behavioral therapist, life coach, meditation teacher, and author. And this is your go-to show for a powerful blueprint to personal growth and empowerment, where we're digging into the 5 master areas of your life: emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, financial health, and well-being. If you're tired of being stuck and are ready to break through the barriers, whether it's trauma or you simply don't have the tools, you've found the right place. How is your inner critic settling with you right now? Right? That ruthless and relentless voice that we all carry that really can break our confidence and break our true enjoyment in life. If that is you, get ready to have a deeply honest conversation about getting in our own way. I sat down with transformational life coach and author Sue Earhart for a powerfully deep conversation about that relentless voice. Together, we're going to explore that voice, how it shapes our identity, and surprising ways that it can sabotage our confidence, our relationships, and our growth. Sue offers practical tools and mindset shifts to help you not only silence that inner critic, but to really transform it into a source of self-compassion and clarity. So if you're someone who struggles with this, if you're your own worst enemy, you have problems getting out of your own head, this is a space that really will offer you some beautiful insights. Let's not waste another second. The Get Your Life Together Girl podcast starts right now. So we all know that we can have an inner critic. It all exists in all of us. Sue, you're an expert in inner critic, so much more than that. I would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do. And let's dive into a very meaty and juicy conversation about how to really get out of our own way.
Sure, would love to, Danielle. So, at this point in my life, I'm a retired corporate executive who has reimagined an entirely new career writing. And what I love to write about is under the umbrella of what I call practical spirituality.
Mm.
And it's teaching people tools that
Mm,
better their life. And
right.
I really try to take all of the hard-earned wisdom that I gathered over my career and over my entire life
Sure.
and pull that together and share it in ways that are easily applicable, very approachable, and
Mhm.
highly effective in shifting your energy, shifting your thinking, and thus shifting your life in really great ways.
We're so aligned in everything that we do, which is exciting because it means that we are going to serve somebody listening today, which is so important, to both of us. So tell us a little bit about your writing first. As a writer myself, this is something that when we can bring our thoughts into context and serve someone, it's such a powerful experience. So tell us a little bit about that first.
Yeah, so I've been a long time journaler.
Mm,
I'm a lawyer by training, and
mm,
we lawyers do a good bit of writing too. So I did some writing in my career, but I really had this passion for writing and journaling that I just saw as a little private passion. It was something I
mm.
would get up every morning and do. And I even, Danielle, would create little essays that I would then email to myself, and I'd schedule them to send on a future date just randomly. I would pick days. So
Mm.
so it's like I was giving myself my content back in the form of a newsletter, and I just loved it, and it was just this private pleasure. And then suddenly something sort of awoken in me, and I just said, I want to share this.
Yeah.
I want to put this out there. So I started a newsletter, which I still run every week. It's called Practical Spirituality. It's a free weekly newsletter, and I put it out there to a few friends, and I said, "Would you just subscribe so I could have some readers?"
Yeah.
And again, this is when I was still working my full time corporate career. So this was just a little passion project on the side, sharing my wisdom, and it really has just blossomed and grown in my life to where it's just a true passion of mine to now write and share. And I just really love connecting with a reader and planting the seed of a new idea.
I love that you scheduled your journaling to yourself. I've never thought of that. That is such a powerful way to really check in. Where am I? Have I resolved this? How do I feel about that? Is there a little bit more work that needs to be done about it? It's such a brilliant thing to receive from the self.
And I can't tell you how many times, like I would work something out in my writing, and that's how I
Mhm.
see it. Like I
Of
work through
course.
something and I
Yeah.
and I get this clarity. And
Hmm.
sometimes we get clarity and then we forget the clarity. Like
Yes.
we get back into life and then we just slip back. So I would get this clarity in my writing, and then like I said, I would send it off to myself on a future day. And I
Mhm.
can't tell you, Danielle, how many times that email would just arrive at some random time. I had no clue, and it would be just what I needed to hear that day. It was just uncanny how that happened. And it just delights me. It still delights me. I still occasionally get some, and I just squeal with delight when I do.
I love it. Speaking about working things out in writing, one thing I noticed, because journaling is something that all of you that listen have heard me talk about so often, because it does allow us to process on paper, process outside of ourselves, to be unjudgmental a little bit. Let's talk about what happens when we are judgmental to the self and we're not necessarily working it out on paper. I know that is part of, your expertise and what
Mhm.
you're doing right now.
Yeah. So I see when someone is self critical,
Mm,
the primary thing that they're doing is driving a wedge between themselves and their authentic self, their spirit.
yeah. Yeah.
They're putting a wedge there, and it's a block. And when you do it over a number of years, and I was a person early in my career who did that and thought that that made me driven and successful. Um, when you do that for a number of years, you build up a habit and a pattern of thought that blocks you from your intuition, from your inner
Hmm.
knowing, and from your inner
Hmm.
wisdom.
Right.
And once you surrender those and get rid of them, and that's some of the stuff I teach is how to kind of depattern that and repattern in better ways, you have this wealth of inner resources that come forward. And it is just a rich and satisfying way to live connected to your spirit. It's how I believe we're meant to live.
Let's define inner critic based on your thought pattern, because I mean, look, we can go to the dictionary, we can Google, we can do all the
Yep.
things. What is your definition of it?
Yep. So and I call it the critic, and I'll talk about why in a bit. But um, the critic shows up in a lot of different ways. So if you engage in any of these habits, I consider this the critic. And the first most obvious is that you self-criticize. All right. You just, you do that. You say, oh, I look terrible in this outfit, or, whatever it is, you self-criticize. And that's the most obvious way.
Right.
And a lot of people do that. And I think that that's the one that most people notice. But there are
Mhm.
other subtle ways that the critic shows up that I want to talk about. So, the second way that I see the critic showing up for a lot of people is that it's ideas that tell you to play small. Um, the critic will kind of push you to only aim for goals that you can achieve. And so it kind of keeps you small and contained. So that is a critic thought pattern. The third way I see the critic show up for a lot of people is that I call it settling. Like they'll say,
Yeah.
"This is enough. This is okay.
Yeah.
This is I can get myself happy there." And I do think there's um, a great skill in learning to appreciate life, but there's
Yeah.
more when you allow yourself to not settle and really move forward.
Yeah.
The fourth way the critic shows up is it tells you to conform. So these are standard things that say, when I'm with this group of people, I dress this way. You might even talk a certain way or act a certain way. I mean, there's different things that we implicitly pick up that say you should conform. To me, that's the critic. And the fifth way I see the critic showing up for a lot of people is that they carry this idea that all others in their life come before them. That they,
Hmm.
that that's
Hmm.
that that. So I see all of those behaviors as intertwined with critic mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And I see those all as blocks to your intuition and to your inner wisdom.
Such a brilliant breakdown. There's so much a crossover between perfectionism and, limiting beliefs and all of these things because it's all intertwined in that too. Listening to the conformity piece, we are all social animals. We tend to do that because we're wired for connection. My favorite thing to ever hear anyone come in that when they're working with them, or even my own children, will say, "Well, I don't fit in there." I'm like, fantastic. Don't try.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly,
Like,
exactly.
don't try. There's a reason for it. Okay, so if these are our blocks, which I am 100% on, alignment with you there, where do we begin to
Mm-hmm.
start,
Yeah.
the unblocking process?
So for most of us, I think the first place we have to start is by just getting the idea that the critic isn't us. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
it's not truly who we are.
Right.
The critic is simply a pattern of thought. Think of it like a habit. You tend to go this way. You tend to skew negative. You tend
Mm-hmm.
to see the thing that's off. It's a pattern of thought. And once you can kind of sit with that, what you can realize is that you can break the pattern. You can
Right.
stop the habit and you can create new habits that are more aligned with who you authentically are.
Right.
So I think that's a big part. The second thing I'd say is that people really have to let go of this idea that criticism is a good and effective motivator. It
Mm-hmm.
isn't. It is a short-term motivator always. And if you want long-term success, which we all do,
Right.
you need to drop criticism because that is just not the train that's going to get you where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I always talk to my son. We've talked about my son here a million times, and he's always the example. And he's like, "Why? Why do you always use me?" And it's because he's in a high performance, high, volatile space as a baseball player. And I always look at the mentality that happens, right? I'm like, if you talk trash to yourself, how are you hoping that you're going to create a long-term success? Trash talk, whether that is, internal, "You're stupid, you look terrible, you're never going to get this," or "This is okay," like you talked about, doesn't get us to that long-term success like you're talking about. You said about habits. Of course, there's so much rhetoric, and I say that with love to all of you authors out there saying, "Oh, just spend 21 days," or just, it's not necessarily how it works.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to have emotion in order to create a new thought pattern. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Yes. And so now I do think that there are definite things you can do
Mm-hmm.
over the course of a set period of time to kind of
Right.
set yourself up for success
Mm-hmm.
for establishing new patterns. So,
Yes.
practicing some new ideas, speaking out loud, saying powerful statements. I mean, all those things are great starting points. All right. I
Mm-hmm.
see them as seeding our consciousness with new ideas.
Yeah.
But what needs to happen is you need to go out into life
Mm-hmm.
and you need to encounter the situation where you go into self criticism, or
Mm-hmm.
that you start playing small, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And you need to very tangibly, in that moment, pay attention to your thinking.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then talk yourself off the ledge. I mean, talk
Mm-hmm.
yourself away from it and say, we're not doing that anymore.
Right.
Um, but I think so many of us are running on autopilot mode that we're not seeing these
Mm-hmm.
behaviors, and that's where, thankfully we're given the gift of people in our life, because so often we can see the behaviors in others. And
Yes.
I always, when I see someone, I always thank them and know that I've got some inner work. Like I see people as helping me to notice behaviors.
Yeah, that mirror is so important. I love what you said, and I hope everyone takes that away. It was beautifully said about really getting into the experience that you're having and shifting in that moment, because in order for a habit to be established and or changed, the brain needs new evidence. It needs a
Yes.
new thought pattern. It needs a new instruction piece. So it's really beautiful that you said that. That is the way we establish our habits. We
Mhm.
change that moment. And by the way, you're going to mess it up. It's okay.
Yes,
Right.
of course. And look, for all of us, I would say, I've been doing this for a long time
Hmm.
and have done a lot of work to build myself up, but I still slip an
Sure.
occasion and notice. I just recently, my husband and son were out of town. And so I was alone for the weekend and I was getting ready to cook. And I realized as I was thinking about what to cook for dinner, I was immediately going to their favorite meals and the things that they enjoy. And Danielle, I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't really realized it, but I had an entire repertoire of recipes that I was catering to them without really asking the
Yeah.
question, what do I want to eat?
Right.
What do I want to have? So again, I mean, we slip into these habits
Right.
of downplaying the self. And when you do that over a lot of years, your
Yeah.
spirit is deflated and
Yeah.
you're going to feel bored. You're going to feel exhausted a lot of the
Hmm.
time. You're going to feel confused because you're not connected to that strong
Yeah.
inner wisdom. And you're going to feel a little listless in life.
Yeah.
So all of those things are just, good things for all of us to watch out for so that we can tap into those powerful resources that we all have for free.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about that question that came to my mind, which is, what about me? Which is what you're saying. And how do we listen to the intuition piece of it? Because a lot of people will say, well, I hear a voice, but it's not telling me positive things, and therefore it must not like me. I'm like, well, that's not your intuition
Yeah.
talking. That's your brain talking.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and maybe this is where faith comes in, but I
Mm,
just have to tell you that when I did the work of really, starting to tune in through writing, through
hmm.
just paying attention. I mean, I was just hit with waves of energy that to me felt like unconditional love. I mean, I
Yeah.
just overwhelmed me. So, the tools for listening are, I would say, the obvious ones like meditation,
Right.
spending time alone, getting out in nature,
Mm,
walking. I mean, but the reality is, we you have to bring it into your day. You really have
yeah.
to make it a point to go through your day anchoring to that inner energy. And that's one of the reasons I don't use the word inner with critic, because in my
Mm,
mind, the critic actually is something outside. It's like thoughts bubbling up in my head. And when
yeah.
I take a moment to really like focus my awareness down into my body and inside my body,
Yeah.
that's where I feel centered and grounded.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's for me, my practice is always when that comes up, like you said, it's outside of you. For me, I always ask two questions. Do I believe this? Do I really truly believe what I'm saying? Usually no, right? It's just that automatic thought pattern. Or two, who does this actually belong to? Did I pick this up along the way?
Mm-hmm.
Did somebody say this to me and this was an outside criticism that I actually don't align with? Is there some truth to it? Like, I really go through the questions in order to really determine, what do I need to do in this moment?
Very similar process. I always ask first when I encounter an idea, I just ask the question, is it true?
Hmm.
And often just asking that question, an idea seems to just dissipate to me. It just seems to like just
Yeah.
go away from my experience. So is it
Right.
true? And then the second thing I ask myself is it helpful? So even if, okay, somebody's going to stand there and say like, well,
Yeah.
it's true that, this negative thing. And then I want to say like, but is that helpful? Is that
Right.
helpful for me to have that idea? And no, it's not. So I'm not going to have it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, let's talk about those people who have more intrusive thoughts and don't have sort of this, we'll call it a superpower, even though it's really not a superpower. It's a trained power to take the train in a different direction. What then?
Well, I mean, I think you just got to keep at it. I mean,
Hmm.
it's to me, it's, cognitive behavioral therapy is excellent and wonderful tool.
Right.
And people who have what I would say intrusive thoughts and feel that way, get yourself to a therapist and
Yeah.
learn these
Hmm.
tools, and start there. But you can do this work. I do believe that every one of us is equipped with all of the resources we need from spirit to
Yeah.
get through things. And it's just a matter of really stopping and listening and
Hmm.
putting yourself as your first priority.
Yeah. Let's talk about doing that in a much more aligned and spiritual space, right? Because that is where we combine that soul with our very human experiences, is what you're talking about. So, can we dive a little bit deeper
Mhm.
there?
Yeah. And I think it's very important that we talk about this because there are many people I've encountered who actually think it's holy to self-criticize,
Mm,
to self-minimize,
right,
and to play small and keep it small.
right.
And in my view, it is exactly the opposite. We are here to fully express as the souls that we
Yeah.
are, to do so authentically, to do so in a way that chases our passions, our desires, our wants, and our interests.
Hmm.
And in so doing, live in alignment with this divinity that, I mean, I call God, and just is
Hmm.
something that once you open yourself up to that, life just gets so much easier. And I got to tell you, Danielle,
Yeah.
when I went through that and really finally connected, life got a lot more fun.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. I know for me, when I have taken myself out of my spiritual practices from just because life was busy or whatever, I noticed that one, life satisfaction was not there. That was a big one for me. Two, everything felt heavy. It wasn't very much fun. And three, I felt less connected with everything
Mhm.
around me, not just myself, but literally everything. There were problems where problems didn't really exist.
For sure. And I would say, I find when I was disconnected, decisions were hard. I mean,
Yeah.
I felt like I would go back and forth and pros and cons, and I thought I was being cautious and reasonable and
Mm,
thoughtful, and really
right.
I was just not tuning in to my
Mm,
own energy and what was there for me. And now I would say, most of my decisions are choiceless, and if they're not choiceless, I tend to step back and say, I must be leaning into something. And frequently for me, when I'm struggling with a decision, it's usually because I have a want that is blocked by a should, meaning there's something that I
mm,
want to do, and then there's some idea about what I should be doing.
yeah.
And
Well,
those two ideas are competing.
yes. Well, we all know we do not like the word should around here at all, right? Should is such a negative experience. Can we dive deeper into that? Because I love that you said that.
So I will tell you, my mantra is there are no shoulds,
Mm,
period. I
hmm.
had that on a post it by my desk at work for years and let it
Yeah.
just sink in, because I had a habit, very early in my career. I really thought that my way in the world was to make my employer, my boss, my manager, make them happy, conform,
Right.
show up as I'm supposed to show up, serve my clients and what they need. And
Right.
so many ways I gave myself away. And during that time, I would ask myself this question: what should I do?
Mm,
And that question yields infinite loops, okay? Because
yeah.
it's basically there is no rule book, there is no list of
Right.
shoulds, they
Mhm.
don't exist. And once you can just sort of sit with that and say they don't exist, you can free yourself from them. And so I really work hard to notice the shoulds and to keep them out of my life.
Yeah. I called the word should a them expectation, right? That is a
Mhm.
them thing. And I have the same kind of mantra. I don't use the word should because, again, eliminate it, please, from all language. But I do say my intention has to match my reality.
Mhm.
So that, it's such a beautiful space for us to recognize that what about me, right? How
Mhm.
do I, you know, step into my life and create something that I am proud of too. That brings me to that space, though, of where people are not connecting necessarily with the self, the authentic self, and connecting with the ego. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, the ego is what I see it is just it's the fearful self. It's the
Mm,
identity version of you who does all the critic behaviors. So,
yeah,
self-criticizes,
yeah.
conforms, plays small. And if you just think about like what I always say is the critic or the ego is simply trying to keep you safe. That's its
Hmm.
only function,
Yeah,
but it has this warped idea that says you stay safe by not expressing yourself. You,
yeah.
you stay safe by not putting yourself out there. You stay
Right.
safe by doing what's expected of you, doing what you should versus what
Yeah,
you want, which are all false premises that, I
right.
mean, you just got to drop. But I mean, we've all got them in our life, but you got to work on them.
Yeah. Let's talk about, say, one thing, a tool, because I know that in your writing, it has developed into a book and really a rule guide as to how to show up in your life, especially when we're talking about that self-critic. Let's talk about how we can really dive deep into this experience and begin to change our life.
Yes. So one tool that I teach, and the book is packed with 28 different exercises and tools for you. But one tool that I teach is to redefine your relationship with a to-do list. Now, a lot of people I know create to-do lists and work from to-do lists. In
Yeah.
fact, they evaluate how they feel about themselves, whether or not they accomplish things
Yeah.
on the to-do list. They let
Hmm.
that to-do list often run their day, often shame them or make them feel badly, and they withhold their own good opinion. So, my recommendation is that you reframe that list. And I just want to be really clear. A to-do list is a compilation of things you don't want to do. Because if you wanted to do them, you'd do them. Like you would,
Right.
you don't forget to do the things that you truly want to do. So it's like
Yeah.
first you need to look at that list and say, in some way, shape, or form, these are things I do not want to do. And just be
Right.
honest about that. So, what I teach people to do is to stop working from a to do list and to instead start logging their day. I call it a logbook, and you can just
Mm,
use anything at all. But what you do is you put the date down and then you log what you did and how you felt as you did
mm,
it. Now,
okay.
my personal logbook, I've actually got it here next to me. I write at the front, this is my logbook, and here I will record the good, the wonderful, and the done.
Ah,
And you get into a habit of logging what you did and how you felt. And Danielle, I just got to tell you, this repatterns your brain. And when
hmm.
you use a logbook to note good things that happened, even
Yeah.
if it's just, I heard my kids yucking it up and laughing with each other, and you
Yeah.
make a note, your brain will repattern and start
Mm,
looking for and seeing those things.
right.
And the logbook, it's so simple and it's so easy, but it really just turns all of that thinking about to-do lists on its head. So and then
Hmm.
what I tell people is, and yes, we all have like life tasks that we're not super excited about.
Yeah.
I label that list and I call it a could do list. It's not in charge of
Hmm.
me. It's not my boss. It's a could do list. And
Right.
that, and then next to each item, I write what I want. Like, why is that on my list? And so, for instance,
Right.
schedule the dentist, that I'm putting off.
Hmm.
I'll write next to it, I want clean and healthy teeth.
Right. Mm,
So in this way, I mean, I really, people, you take control of your day. And if you logged even for just a few weeks,
hmm.
first of all, I mean, you would turn more positive. You'd pick up on all sorts of themes about yourself. I mean, if you can start to tie your thinking to say, oh, when I do this, I feel good, or I feel
Right.
empowered, or I
Mm,
feel satisfied, that is just a huge amount of information that's helpful for your life. So that's just one
yeah.
of the tools that I teach.
I love that. I actually, as you're talking, I was thinking about a tool that I gave here on the podcast that I actually use all the time. And it's sort of like what you're talking about, because my to-do list, which admittedly I'm still working on that self-criticism for whether I got it done or not. And I tend to overload myself. If you saw my to-do list for this week, you'd be like, oh man. Um, but I put it as us, them, could, and I use sometimes the word should, right? So like me,
Mhm.
us, right? Like, what is it that I need or want to do that's going to give me that feedback? So that has things on it like, hey, I need to spend time with so and so, or I need to, create the meal train for whatever, or whatever it is, right? Go to yoga, run. And then them, it's those things that people are assigning to me. Hey, I need this, I need a session, and I need emergency, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, that's your request on me.
Mhm.
And then those coulds of, these are the things like the dentist that I could get done today if I have time,
Mhm.
kind of thing. So it's really helpful. I still have a hard time, though, not valuing myself based on that. Can we talk about that value piece?
Yeah, I mean, and look, I think all of us have those little things
Hmm.
where, for some folks, it's, oh, I didn't work out today, and they're hard on themselves. For others, it's, for whatever it is. And you just got to knock it off. And you got to catch
Mm,
yourself in the moment and
yeah.
say, you know what? I'm actually a really good person, or
Yeah.
I actually have intrinsic value just for being me.
Yeah.
You've got to do that talk. And for so many of us, we know it's the talk that we would give to someone else. If you were sitting in front of me,
Yeah.
these are all the things I'd say to you. You need to give that talk to yourself. And you said this earlier, and I agree so much about putting things into words. I actually think that
Yeah.
there's something about the brain when we allow amorphous thoughts to just sort
Hmm.
of exist and don't pull them down into words and look at them, they dog us. I'll tell you. I mean, they
Oh,
will
yeah.
chase you around. And
Hmm.
that's just part of the work of adulthood, is dealing
Yeah.
with those thoughts and talking to yourself in a way that is compassionate.
Yeah. Well, we have to remember that the brain does not know whether something is active right now or not. And every thought that we have, if we connect to it, becomes an instruction. And if we don't give it a full pattern for the instruction, like I'm going to do that tomorrow at 2 p.m., and the brain's like, got it. At 1:50, I'm going to remind you, it doesn't know what to do with it. So
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it's chasing us around. It's literally like, okay, I'm putting that file in the container, but I can't close it until you tell me what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
yeah, go ahead.
But I also think that, I believe life and spirit brings you life
Yeah.
experiences because
Yeah.
you have an opportunity to change your thinking. And
Yes.
so if you do feel dogged by something, something you feel like is chasing you,
Yeah.
I really do think life is often presenting you with a problem to say, hey, you've got a giant limiting belief here.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
could choose to let it go and adopt a more expansive way of seeing this. And I've
Yeah.
seen that time and time again. Like when something just keeps circling and I finally sit with it, I'm like, oh, I was limiting myself.
Yeah.
That's why you kept coming after me with that thought.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. No resolution yet,
Mm-hmm.
right? No pattern for change. Mirror in so many places, like you've said, thank you
Mm-hmm.
for showing that. I noticed that in you. Must be something that I need to course correct within myself. It's such a beautiful thing. For me, one thing that I do, and it's the same as a critic. If I have judgment of someone else, I'm going to sit in that judgment and say, why did I come to that conclusion?
Yeah.
Right? What's about that space?
Yeah. My rule of thumb, if I'm judging, I've got a
Mm-hmm.
blocked want.
Mm.
And maybe it's a want that I feel is improper or makes me seem
Yeah.
greedy or selfish. But there's a want there that I want what that person has, and I'm judging
Yeah.
it.
Mm. Such a beautiful, easy way to break that down, because that is such a hard concept for so many people. But what a beautiful way to say that. Let's talk about that selfish space, because I think we tie selfishness and that criticism into the same category very easily
Mhm.
in life. We tend to, we're talking about what do I want or what do I need? Well, we tend to put those on the bottom of those lists when they should be number one on the list, right? We're never
Mhm.
really fully on our own list. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, I come at it from a spiritual perspective, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you, my belief is uh, the only true spiritual journey starts with the self. You
Hmm.
have to know the self,
Yeah.
love the self, and
Right.
believe in the self before you can believe in anything outside of you. Okay,
Yes.
and so it's foundational.
Hmm.
The foundation, and I call this foundation inner success.
Yeah.
And we see it all the time. We see people chasing outer success
Yeah.
without getting the inner success first, and it becomes a fragile life that one
Yeah.
little thing falls apart and they fall apart.
Yeah.
When what you want to do, if you are a goal setter, which I am,
Yeah.
make your goal inner success, and then all those outer success things become fun things to work on.
Beautiful. It reminds me, I'll tell a quick story so that everyone can kind of connect to something too of what you just said. In 2013, I remember sitting with a friend and she said, "Okay, quick, write a list of everyone you love." And I was like, "What? Okay, why?" Right? Like, why?
Yeah.
And so I started doing it and she said, "Okay, time's up." I'm like, "But I haven't finished." She said, "Doesn't matter. Hand me your list." I'm like, "Okay." Hand it to her. She's like, "You know what? You're not on this list."
Yeah, that's
And
so
I was
great.
like, oh, ouch. And
Yeah.
I was like, no, that's like a given. She's like, no, it's not a given
Mm-hmm.
at all. And I was like, but okay, if I put myself on the list, like I probably wouldn't put it at number one. Like I've got three kids, got a husband, family, all that. And she's like, no, 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 no,
Yep.
Danielle. Right. And she's like, why are you doing these things? Why are you showing up for them? What's the purpose? And she took it to that spiritual space. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I live like that already. And she's like, but you're not because you are not in that space. And that's really what you're talking about. It's such a beautiful understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I really see self-love as each
Mm.
of our individual responsibilities. And
Yes.
what I always say too is like, you're the only person who can give you self-love, period.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
it. And it's your job to do it. And once you do, again, I feel like my intuition
Mm.
and my inner wisdom got stronger and stronger. Like the
Yeah.
more I exercised self love and particularly unconditional self love, letting
Yeah.
myself laze on the couch for an entire day watching shows and not self
Yeah.
criticize and instead
Mm.
self celebrate and say, I'm so glad I'm doing this for me. I'm so glad I'm
Yeah.
taking this time. And the more I did practices like that, man, I really feel like my intuition started showing up in a big way and my writing really took off.
Yeah. Because you're aligned, right? You
Mhm.
aligned yourself with what you were needing and wanting and what was a part of a grander piece of your purpose. And it's something that we can all do. We just have to give ourselves permission to do that.
Yeah, and I think we need to start talking about self-love in new and different ways. I
Mm,
mean, I guess I'm a little fatigued that the only discussion of self-love is, well, I did a bunch of squats and
yeah,
I ate lettuce for
yeah,
lunch. Like
exactly.
as if that is a loving practice. Now, I mean, don't get me
Right,
wrong, if you love doing those things, then that's a loving practice. But
right.
I mean, we just really don't get into, self-love is, tuning into your own energy. It's paying
Yeah,
attention to how you feel.
right.
It's expressing authentically. There's so many things that really go into a self-love practice. And,
Yeah.
I would just love to see broader conversations about that, like what it means to self-love. I mean, wouldn't it be awesome if we taught that in schools?
Oh, I've been saying that for years and years and years. Self-love, emotions, regulation, mindfulness, all of these things. There's a movement right now, I think, especially, of course, overseas, but here in the United States, somewhat we're tapping into the mindfulness setting of things in elementary schools, but we lose it in the spaces that we most need it, which is our middle schools and our high schools. Like
Mm-hmm.
these are our adults, forthcoming and they aren't practicing those things. Super important for us to be having those conversations. Another piece of self-love that we don't talk about enough, which I'm with you on the squats and the, nails and all of that stuff. Those are great things, guys. It's beautiful. But for me, I think we're connecting with this value of something outside of ourselves, which that's not self-love, right? My rule book for self-love is, did it feed me emotionally? Did it feed me spiritually? Did it feed me mentally? Did it feed me physically? And can I put a tangible to it? That's my rule book for self-love.
I love that. Tell me more about the tangible part.
Yeah, meaning can I take it and use it in my life in some way? So, can I see it in a physical reality? So, if I'm feeding myself emotionally, my gratitude practice, my stopping, pausing, using my breath work, whatever it is, can I see that perhaps breath work finding its way into a moment of frustration instead of the reaction going, just gonna just give me a second here.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's self-love, right? I
Yes.
didn't respond in the way that is predictive of the environment.
Hmm.
Instead, I said, I'm not going to let my critic take control, and I'm just going to slow down for a moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we have a practice. I feel like there's probably some more that maybe could you throw another one at us because we love practical tools here. And then we're going to talk about your book.
Sure. Let me give you one more. All right. I think one of the quickest ways to really know yourself and love yourself, find yourself, and frankly, make your life awesome
Yeah.
is to start saying two words
Mm.
often. And it's I want. And I
Ooh.
meet so many people who struggle to say
Mm.
those words. They
Yeah.
go into fear when
Yeah.
they say those words. So, what I teach is for people to practice saying, I want, even if you're doing it silently in your head or to yourself, because sometimes that's where somebody has to start,
Right.
and do it all day long, which means I might start my day and look at my calendar at what's laid out. And I say, I want for each thing on my calendar. What do I want? And it
Mm.
and I keep it real and I keep it honest. It might be,
Right.
I want this meeting to end really quickly because this person annoys me. I mean,
Yeah.
again, this is only you to you that you're talking here, but
Right.
you say I want.
Right.
You do the same thing when you go to eat.
Mm.
So many of us are choosing foods of what we think we should be eating and
Right.
not tuning in and saying. So even if you aren't there yet, just say, I'm ordering a salad, but I want a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
I mean, just be honest
Mm. Right.
and do that. And I would take any goal or any project in my life and I would make sure that I had a statement of I want for each one. And
Mm.
so many of us, again, we embark on goals like we'll say, "Oh, I've got a new goal, strength training." Okay,
Yeah.
have you said, "What do I want?" And when
Right.
you engage with those two words, what I see it as and what I feel it in my body, it's like my energy comes back into my core. It anchors to me, I
Yeah.
want. And I see my soul as the keeper of my wants. And so
Mm.
when I say the words I want, I'm tapping my spirit and I'm
Yeah.
strengthening that connection. And so that's another tool that I teach.
Oh, I could sit in that all day long because as a therapist, you know what I hear all day. I don't want this. And I'm like, stop saying that. You are instructing everything around you to
Yeah.
create that. Stop it. They're like, but I don't. And I'm like, great, reframe it.
Reframe it. That's all you have to do. Just
Yeah.
just reframe it and say what you want. And a huge aha for me in spirituality when I realized that spirit communicates with us through our wants and our desires, our interests
Mhm.
and our curiosities.
Yeah.
And if you simply make it your point every single day to pay attention to those, like where's my
Yeah.
attention drawn?
Yeah.
What is exciting to me? What
Yeah.
feels like it's bubbling up in me? And you give
Hmm.
those things attention. I mean, you are bringing spirit into the world.
Yeah. I was recently having a conversation with myself about that very thing, right? Like I found myself saying, I don't want, and I'm like, why am I doing this? I know better. And then I started seeing things fall away from that I don't want. And I was like, but wait, what? I need that. And it was like, no, you already said you don't want this. Now turn your direction into what you do. And as I started doing that, that felt good because remember, everyone, even with all of the tools, Sue and I still mess it up. Right?
Yes, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. I mean, you get in life, you get busy,
Yeah.
something unexpected happens and you're pulled into
Hmm.
fear or you're triggered. I mean, we all have those things. But
Yeah.
if you adopt an attitude to say, life is bringing this to me to benefit me. I'm just going to assume that, give God a little grace
Yeah.
and assume that, and then look for the benefit. You approach
Yeah.
it in a much better way. But we all get pulled in, and then we pull over
Yeah.
to the side of the road and we take a few deep breaths and we get back in there.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. Let's talk about your book. Give us the name of it and where
So
we
the
can get it.
so the book is Lose Your Critic for Good. It is a step-by-step process for reclaiming your spirit. It
Mm.
is sold everywhere books are sold.
Yeah.
Um, if you do buy a copy of it and head over to my website, which is sueerhart.com,
Mm.
you can get a few book bonuses, including an extensive workbook that you can download and do with the book. I mean, the book by
Beautiful.
itself gives you plenty of exercises and plenty of guidance. You can start there. But if you
Right.
really want to go deeper with the material, there's an entire workbook that you can download for free.
Beautiful. We're going to put not only the link to the book, but also your website on the show notes and on my website. So please visit that particular section and you will see where you can get this book. I'm so excited for people to be able to take this and use these tools, right? We have so many opportunities, and it's a matter of what works for you, what connects with your soul, what makes the spirit feel alive, seen, witnessed, and lived through. So it's such a beautiful thing. What's the one thing that you feel that the listeners need to have today?
Well, I guess the one thing I would push is for people to subscribe to my newsletter. And let me just
Mm,
talk a little bit about it. So I have a Sunday newsletter, and every person who subscribes starts with issue one. and
right.
and it's a progression of essays. And so it's I've got them timed out and they progress over time, and merely by reading these essays you'll be opening your mind to
Mm,
new ideas, and it's completely free.
right.
And I get notes from all over the world of people
Mm,
who love this little Sunday morning practice of
yeah.
reading my essays, and it will really help you take in a lot of these ideas in a different way, just to quietly sit and read.
Beautiful. We'll put the link there as well. So definitely subscribe. As a listener, you know that I end the podcast the same way. So I'm going to ask you if you'll share with us what are three things that you are deeply grateful for right now?
Myself,
Mm,
my connection to the divine,
hmm.
and this beautiful life that I am living now that I am.
Ah, now that I am. Take that away. If you don't, have already a notebook full of things, because I know that so many of our listeners write in and say, I just sit and listen and I take note after note after note. And if you didn't do that today, if that piece is all you walk away with, now that I am, and check yourself to find out, are you truly living your experience? I think that that could definitely open your mind, your heart, and your spirit. So thank you so much, Sue, for your time, your energy, for your wisdom. I'm excited to grab a copy of your book too and really use it in my own experience too. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Danielle. It's been a delight to talk to you.
What a great conversation. I love when the guest and I align and we can talk about how we can really get out of our own way and back into our lives. Remember, the most important person in your life is you. Remember, we cannot pour from the empty cup. We have to be the cup itself. We're going to put all of Sue's information, including her website, where you can connect with her on social media, and where to purchase her book in our show notes and also on my website. So please go there and connect with Sue as well. Can't thank her enough for the beautiful insights and tools that she provided. I want to also thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. If you've enjoyed these tips for bettering your life and you're not already following me on social media, please do so on Instagram, TikTok, Clapper, Pinterest, Facebook, and Insight Timer. Join me each Monday morning at 9 a.m. Central on Insight Timer for a free conversation, much like the podcast, where you can interact with me and a beautiful community and ask questions that you may have live. If you're looking for more information, please visit my website at getyourlifetogethergirl.com. Or if you would like to work with me one-on-one, I'm happy to do so, and you can find how to book a session right there on my website. I look forward to spending time with you again very soon. Until we meet again, be kind to yourself and others.